Hi everyone. Today for step 1 in our module's assignment is learning a little bit about what we call sonnets. So I've provided that study guide for you to help you because your quiz will be asking you the questions that I'm going to go over that are part of that study guide. And you can find those answers within these notes as you follow along. So you can consider those like guided notes for our lesson today. Once you have listened to this video and you have filled out your study guide, you can move along to take the quiz. But I suggest that not only you answer the questions on your study guide, but you take some side notes as well about the structure of sonnet because you are going to be asked to write your own sonnet by the end of this module. So our essential question for today is, what is a sonnet and how is it different than other pieces of literature? Well, to put it simply, sonnets are a 14-line poem that are generally focused on the topic of love. You can think about them like love poems. One of the people that's very famous for writing sonnets is William Shakespeare, and that is the author of our play Romeo and Juliet that we are focusing on this unit that we have started to talk about and gotten some background information on. I know yesterday you worked on that Globe Theater activity, and that would be the location that Shakespeare may have written some of his famous sonnets. So these poems are really, really particular. They're very structured. Like I said, they're 14 lines, and they're always 14 lines. But there's some other pieces to them that I'm going to show you today that you need to make note of. So I'm going to practice analyzing a few sonnets with you by using this small checklist. We're going to look at the title of the sonnets, we're going to look at the lines, we're going to look at couplets, and we're going to look at rhyme scheme, and I'll talk to you a little bit about what those mean. So let's take a look at this sonnet. This is written by Shakespeare, and we have those 4 things at the bottom here that I told you we would focus on. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at the rhyme scheme of the poem. Now, as you guys know, we always start at the top of the alphabet with our rhyme scheme. So I'm going to start by labeling this with an A. Okay, I want to make sure that that's in red. Now, sun is the last word of this line. So that's how I'm going to determine whether the next line is going to be labeled A or not. Because if the word at the end of the second line rhymes with the word sun, then it must be A. But if the word at the end of the next line does not rhyme with sun, I'm going to have to resort to moving on to the letter B. So sun and red do not rhyme. Therefore, I'm going to have to label this B. I'm going to do the same thing over and over again with each line. Done does not rhyme with red, so it cannot be B. But it does rhyme with sun, so I'm going to label that one A. It's possible to have an A all the way at the end of the poem, even if I never see one again, with lots of poetry. But with sonnets, we have a very, very specific rhyme scheme, and it's always going to be the same. And this is the rhyme scheme that it's going to follow. It's going to be AB, AB, CD, CD. And that's for the first 2 stanzas. We also call the stanzas in these poems quatrains. You might want to note that on your notes, especially for your quiz and when you're writing that. So you can write down stanzas equal quatrains, which is 4 lines. Think about the word qua, kind of looks like quarter, 4, make $1. Now back to the rhyme scheme, like I said, it's always going to be the same, so it's going to be AB, AB, CD, CD, EF, EF, and then GG. Every sonnet that you read by Shakespeare is going to have the exact same rhyme scheme. So really you don't even have to look at the words to know, but it's good to double check to make sure that it is following that rhyme scheme. Sometimes the words don't always rhyme exactly like you would think, and so you might ask yourself, is that rhyming? It could be what we call a slant rhyme or an end rhyme, and it's a stretch to get it to rhyme. So I've done number 1 already. I've labeled the rhyme scheme of the poem in red. Let's see. Well, I was going to do a strike through, but never mind. Okay, so that task has been completed, so we can go ahead and mark that red. Next task is to highlight the couplet in the sonnet. Here is another piece of information you need to write on your study guide. A couplet is 2 lines, 2 rhyming lines at the end of the poem. So we're going to highlight it. And these 2 lines right here rhyme, rare and compare. So they're 2 rhyming lines. You can think about the fact that couplet, couple is 2 people. So it's 2 rhyming lines. Every one of Shakespeare's sonnets has a rhyming couplet at the end. All of them. So when you write your own sonnet, you are going to have a rhyming couplet at the end. So keep that in mind for when you do your final assignment. Highlight the title. Shakespeare is always using numbers for his sonnets. He doesn't give them a title, they're just numbered. And so that's not going to be the case for every sonnet you ever see in your whole life, but for his sonnets, they're typically numbered. Now, he does have some sonnets that are going to be within the play, and they're not titled just because they're pieces of the play, and you'll see those as we go along. Okay. Now, the last task is to label the line numbers 5 and 10 of the sonnet in green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count down from line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here we go. So this is going to be in green. Then I'm going to label 10, 6, so we'll start at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in green. Now that I've gotten 10, let me just see how many lines there are total. 11, 12, 13, 14. Now that hits the mark because remember back on our notes, we said that this was a 14-line poem. It always has 14 lines. It always has a couplet at the end. It has the same rhyme scheme always. Okay? Now, if you haven't marked on your study guide yet, you need to pause the video because you need to write down what a couplet is. You need to write down the rhyme scheme that I've labeled over to the right, A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. You also need to write down the information at the bottom. What are quatrains? How many lines are in a quatrain? And how many lines are in a sonnet. Okay, so pause the video so you can do that. Now I'm going to move on now. A few more details that you may need to know for your study guide that will be mentioned on your quiz. Of course, like I said, William Shakespeare is well known for his sonnets. I told you that he typically numbers them. And I told you that he has sonnets within the play that we're going to be reading, Romeo and Juliet. So, the prologue of our play is actually going to be a sonnet. Now, if you're not sure what a prologue is a preview. It is an introduction to the play. So at the very, very beginning, you will see a sonnet, a 14-line poem with a rhyming couplet at the end that follows that specific rhyme scheme, and it will be titled Prologue. That sonnet will give us a preview or introduction to the story. It gives us actually a couple spoilers, but you can think of it like a movie trailer because it's a preview or introduction to Romeo and Juliet. You'll also see when you read that prologue some stage directions around that prologue that you didn't see in the sonnet that I showed you today. Enter, exit. Those are some of the important details that you're going to want to start paying attention to as soon as we start reading the play, so you know when it's your time to come on and read and when it's your time to leave, just as if you were an actor on stage. These are some pretty cool sonnets that I found recently called pop sonnets. And I'm sure you're familiar with Justin Bieber, and you may be familiar with the band LMFAO. They have a very famous song, I'm Sexy and I Know It, and Justin Bieber's, of course, song, What Do You Mean? What they have done here is they have taken their song, and typically they take the chorus for these pop sonnets, the most important lines that you would remember, and they've made it into a 14-line poem with rhyming couplet that follows the rhyme scheme of a sonnet. So if you'd like to read through these, they're pretty funny actually, and they do follow that structure, so that's just another way for you to practice. I would suggest that you use these to practice going through and looking for the title, numbering the lines, labeling the rhyme scheme, and labeling the couplets, so that you're very, very clear on what is what in a sonnet. Okay, so go ahead and take time to do that and practice if you feel you need it. Make sure you have all the questions answered on your study guide, and if you do not, you can go back through the video and find the information as you need it.